Day 45. Sarah had been married to Minjun for 45 days, and in that time, she'd learned more about the architecture of organized crime than most people learn in a lifetime. But what she was about to learn would make everything that came before look like an orientation video. She was reviewing ledgers in the private office, numbers, transactions, shell corporations layered on top of each other like a sophisticated puzzle designed to launder millions. When Minjun entered without knocking, his expression was different, harder, like he'd made a decision and was bracing for the fallout. "My mother wants to see you," he said, alone, in the lower levels. The lower levels, Sarah's stomach clenched. She'd heard whispers about them from staff members who thought she wasn't listening. The lower levels were where interrogations happened, where problems were solved with methods that didn't leave convenient paperwork trails. "What have I done?" Sarah asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Nothing," Minjun said. "Yet. That's what this meeting is about. Come." The elevator descended further than Sarah had known was possible, past the parking garage, past the reinforced basement, into a level that shouldn't exist according to the building's official blueprints. When the doors opened, Sarah stepped into a world that made the penthouse look like child's play. It was a command center. Sophisticated surveillance equipment monitored feeds from across Seoul. Armed security personnel moved with military precision. And at the far end of the room, in a private glass-walled office, sat Kang Hae-won. "Waiting, come in." "Sarah," Hae-won said, her voice carrying through a speaker system. "I want to show you something." The screens lit up simultaneously, and Sarah saw her mother in a car, driving through the city, completely unaware that she was being tracked, filmed, monitored by the Kang organization with precision that was frankly horrifying. "Your mother left her house this morning at 7:15 a.m., Hae-won narrated calmly. "She drove to her office, where she spent 6 hours pretending to work while actually staring at her computer screen, wondering where her daughter is. At 1:30 p.m., she went to lunch at a cafe 3 blocks from her office. She ordered a salad and coffee. She looked at her phone 37 times, hoping for a message from you. At 3 p.m., she returned to her office, and at 5:47 p.m., she will leave work, drive home, and spend another evening alone, wondering if she'll ever see you again." Sarah felt tears forming, but she refused to let them fall. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because," Hae-won said, "I want you to understand what you're protecting by staying loyal to us. Your mother is alive. She's healthy. She's living her life under our constant surveillance, but she's living. That changes Sarah, the moment you stop being useful to this organization." "I understand that," Sarah said quietly. "Do you?" Hae-won leaned forward. "Do you really? Because I'm about to ask you to do something that will test whether you truly understand the cost of loyalty, and if you hesitate, if you show even a moment of weakness, the surveillance on your mother stops, and what happens after that will be far worse than simple murder." Sarah's mouth went dry. "What do you want me to do?" "We have a problem," Hae-won said. "One of our own has become a liability, a man named Park Dae-sung. He's worked for our organization for 12 years. He's managed our operations in the Gangnam district. But recently, we learned something troubling. He's been skimming money. Small amounts, nothing that would immediately trigger our accounting systems, but consistent, methodical. He's stolen approximately 4 million won over the past 6 months. So handle it," Sarah said. "You have people who—" "We do have people," Hae-won interrupted. "And they would handle it. But I want you to handle it." The room seemed to tilt. "What?" "You'll meet with Park Dae-sung. You'll tell him that you've discovered his embezzlement during your review of the accounts. You'll tell him that Minjun doesn't know yet. You'll offer him a choice. He can take his family and leave Korea, never to return, or he can face the consequences of stealing from the Kang family." "That sounds reasonable," Sarah said slowly, understanding that it absolutely was not reasonable. It's a test, Haewon said. Park Dae-sung will likely refuse your offer. He'll think you're bluffing. He'll think that someone of your status wouldn't dare make such a threat. He'll probably threaten you back. And when he does, you will make one phone call, and the security team waiting outside will take him into custody. After that, Haewon paused meaningfully. After that, he disappears. What happens to him in the interim is not your concern. What matters is that you initiate the process. You mark him for death. You become complicit. You want me to be a murderer? Sarah whispered. I want you to be family, Haewon corrected. There's a difference. A murderer kills for personal reasons. Family does what's necessary to protect the organization. Family crosses lines that cannot be uncrossed. Family becomes bound by blood to our cause. Sarah's hands were shaking. She thought of her mother. She thought of the surveillance feeds, of the constant monitoring, of the understanding that one wrong move would result in her mother's death. She thought of Minjun's warning, the person you were before is dead. I'll do it, Sarah said. Good, Haewon replied. Park Dae-sung will arrive at the conference room on the 32nd floor at 8 p.m. tonight. He thinks he's meeting Minjun. He has no idea what's waiting for him. When Sarah left the lower levels, Minjun was waiting by the elevator. He didn't speak. He just looked at her with an expression that contained something like sadness, something like respect, and something like recognition of a line being crossed that could never be uncrossed. The conference room on the 32nd floor was all glass and steel, overlooking the glittering expanse of Seoul. Sarah sat alone at the head of the table, and her heart was a bird attempting to escape from her chest. At exactly 8 p.m., Park Dae-sung entered. He was a man in his 50s, with a scarred face and kind eyes that made what was about to happen exponentially worse. Where's Minjun? He asked immediately. He couldn't make it, Sarah said. I'm handling this meeting. Park Dae-sung's expression shifted into something between confusion and amusement. You? The girl they just married off? You're handling what? A problem, Sarah said, forcing herself to meet his eyes. A problem that started 6 months ago when you began stealing from the organization. The colour drained from Park Dae-sung's face. He laughed nervously. That's impossible. My accounting is flawless. Your accounting was flawless, Sarah corrected. But I'm better with numbers than the person who was checking them before I found the discrepancies. 4,000,001. Methodical. Consistent. You were very careful, Mr. Park, but not careful enough. Listen, Park Dae-sung said, his voice taking on a desperate edge. Listen, I have a family. My daughter is getting married next month. I need that money for her wedding. I was going to pay it back. I was just borrowing. You stole from the Kang family, Sarah interrupted. Now you have 2 choices. Option 1, you take your family and leave Korea. Tonight. You disappear, and you never contact anyone from your old life. You start over somewhere they can't reach you. Option 2, you refuse, and I make 1 phone call, and what happens to you after that is not my concern. Park Dae-sung's hands were trembling. The Kang family will find me. They'll find my daughter. They'll find my wife. Possibly, Sarah acknowledged. Or possibly, if you disappear completely and never look back, they'll decide you're not worth the resources, the choice is yours. For a long moment, Park Dae-sung just stared at her. Then something in his expression hardened. He stood up. You think you're threatening me? You think you're some kind of power player now? You're nothing. You're a girl who got married for money. You're a pawn. And when this is over, when you're no longer useful, they'll discard you the same way they're about to discard me. Sarah's hand moved toward the phone. Park Dae-sung saw the movement and lunged forward, grabbing her wrist. For a moment there was a physical struggle, Sarah trying to reach the phone, Park Dae-sung trying to stop her. And then the doors burst open. Security personnel flooded in. Park. Dae-sung was subdued with clinical efficiency. He didn't scream. He didn't fight. He just went quietly, like he understood that screaming wouldn't help. like he understood that his fate had been sealed the moment he decided to steal from the Kang family. Sarah sat alone in the conference room, her hands still shaking, and she realized that she'd just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. She'd just set in motion a chain of events that would result in a man's death. A man with a daughter getting married. A man with a wife who loved him. A man who was now gone, erased from the world by a phone call she'd made. If you're watching this and you didn't expect Sarah to actually go through with it, if you thought she'd find some way to refuse or escape, then you're not ready for what episode 3 is going to bring. But before we get there, you need to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and hit that notification bell. Because what happens next is going to shatter everything Sarah thought she was capable of. The choices she makes in the next 72 hours will determine whether she becomes the most powerful person in Seoul or whether she becomes the next person to disappear. So subscribe now because this story is about to go places you never expected. Min-jun was waiting for her in the penthouse when she returned. He didn't congratulate her. He didn't tell her she'd done the right thing. He simply handed her a glass of whiskey and said, "You've officially become one of us now. There's no going back from this." "I know," Sarah said, and she drank the whiskey in one gulp. Over the next 3 days, Sarah tried to act normal. She attended meals with Min-jun and Hae-won. She continued studying Korean. She reviewed financial documents. But something inside her had changed. A part of her had died when she made that phone call. The part that believed in redemption, in escape, in the possibility that she could survive this without becoming a monster. On day 48, she learned that Park Dae-sung had been found floating in the Han River. The official story was suicide. The real story was that the Kang organization had made sure he couldn't be identified through conventional means. He was simply gone. A man with a family, with a daughter getting married, with a wife who would spend the rest of her life wondering what happened to him, just erased Sarah threw up. Then she composed herself. Then she went to Hae-won's office and said, "I want to be promoted. I want real responsibility. I want to be involved in the decision-making process, not as Min-jun's wife. As a member of the organization." Hae-won studied her for a long moment. "The girl I met 48 days ago wanted to go home. The woman sitting in front of me now wants power. What happened to the person in between?" "She died," Sarah said simply. "The moment I made that phone call, she stopped existing. Now there's only the woman who understands what it takes to survive in your world." "Good," Hae-won said, "because we have a situation developing that requires someone with your particular skill set. Someone from outside the traditional power structure. Someone who can see solutions that the rest of us are too close to see." "What situation?" Sarah asked. "War," Hae-won replied. "A rival organization is making moves against us. They're testing our defenses, infiltrating our operations, turning our people. And worst of all, they have information that they shouldn't have. Someone inside our organization has betrayed us. We need to find them. We need to stop them. And we need to do it before they destroy everything we've built." Sarah leaned back in her chair. "How long do I have?" "1 week, Hae-won said. "Find the traitor in 1 week and you'll be promoted to the inner circle. You'll have access to the organization's most sensitive operations. You'll be considered Min-jun's equal in terms of authority, if not in terms of lineage. And if I don't find them, then the rival organization will continue their infiltration until our entire structure collapses," Hae-won said. "And in the chaos that follows, your mother will become very, very vulnerable. Security details will be withdrawn, surveillance will be discontinued, and people who want revenge against this family will have easy access to her." Sarah understood the threat. 1 week to find the traitor, or her mother died. 1 week to prove herself worthy of real power in the organization, or everything she'd sacrificed to stay alive would be meaningless. She spent the next 72 hours doing something she'd never done before. She became a detective. She reviewed surveillance footage from the lower levels. She examined financial transactions for irregularities. She interviewed members of the security team, the administrative staff, the business managers. She looked for patterns, for inconsistencies, for the subtle signs that someone was working for the other side. And on day 4 of her investigation, she found it. A pattern in the way security routes were being changed. A pattern that gave rival organization members increased access to sensitive areas. A pattern that led directly to Minjun's personal assistant, a woman named Jung Ha-eun, who'd been with the family for 15 years. Sarah brought the evidence to Minjun. She watched his face as he processed the betrayal. Not rage, not shock, but a kind of weary resignation, like he'd always known that everyone would eventually disappoint him. "Bring her to the lower levels," he said quietly. "We'll need to know who she's been working for, how much she's told them, and what they're planning next." "What will you do with her?" Sarah asked. "Whatever is necessary," Minjun replied. "That's the business we're in, Sarah. That's what you're now part of. We ask the questions, we get the answers, and then we ensure that the problem never presents itself again." Sarah watched as Ha-eun was taken away. She watched as the woman who'd poured her morning coffee for the past 2 months was escorted toward an uncertain, terrifying fate, and she realized that this was the real test, not finding the traitor. That was easy once you understood how to look. The real test was learning to live with the consequences of your actions, learning to order someone's interrogation and torture and possible death without flinching, learning to be not just a member of the organization, but a functional, effective member who could do what needed to be done. On day 51, Ha-won summoned her to the lower levels again. The interrogation had yielded everything they needed. Ha-eun was working for the Park Dong-soo organization, a rival family that had been encroaching on Kang territory for years. Ha-eun had been feeding them information about operations, security protocols, and planned moves for the past 18 months. "You've done well," Ha-won said. "You've potentially saved this organization from catastrophic damage. Because of your quick thinking, we now know the extent of their infiltration and we can take steps to counteract it. You've proven yourself valuable, Sarah. More valuable than we initially anticipated." "Thank you," Sarah said automatically, but inside she was hollow. She'd become someone who could discover a traitor, initiate their torture, and feel nothing but professional satisfaction at a job completed. "Your mother will be moved to a safer location," Ha-won continued. "A private estate, protected by our best security. She'll be told that it's for her own safety, that there's been some issue with her neighborhood. She'll never know that she owes her continued existence to your successful infiltration investigation." Sarah nodded. That was the deal, after all. Loyalty to the organization in exchange for her mother's protection. She was beginning to understand that the organization would always ask for more, that there would always be another test, another line to cross, another piece of her humanity to sacrifice on the altar of survival. She was promoted to the inner circle. She was given access to real power. She was invited to sit in on strategy meetings where decisions were made about operations, about violence, about the future direction of the Kang family's empire. And with each meeting, each decision, each choice to prioritize the organization over her conscience, she felt herself transforming into something else, something harder, something more efficient, something less human. But on night 51, alone on the balcony of the penthouse, looking out at Seoul spread beneath her like a kingdom she'd somehow come to help rule, Sarah made a discovery that would change everything. She'd found a hidden file in Minjun's office, a file containing detailed information about her father's financial situation before the marriage, information that revealed the truth that Ha-won and Minjun had never told her. Her father hadn't been desperate for money. He hadn't been on the verge of bankruptcy. He'd been perfectly financially stable. The entire story about his company being in trouble had been a lie, a carefully constructed deception designed to make Sarah compliant, designed to make her believe she was protecting her family by staying loyal to the organization. She'd been manipulated. She'd sacrificed her humanity for a lie. And the person who'd orchestrated that lie was the man sleeping in the bedroom down the hall, the man she was now legally married to, the man she'd come to understand and perhaps even respect. Sarah held that file in her trembling hands and realized that she had two choices. She could confront Min-jun and demand answers, potentially putting herself in danger, or she could keep quiet, continue her work for the organization, and figure out how to use this knowledge to her advantage. She chose option 3. She made a phone call to someone she shouldn't have had access to. Someone outside the organization. Someone who could help her understand what was really happening and why she'd been chosen for this fate. And that phone call set in motion a chain of events that would destroy everything the Kang organization had built, that would force Sarah to make choices even more devastating than the ones she'd already made. That would transform her from a victim into a weapon capable of unprecedented destruction. The game was no longer just changed. It was completely inverted. And Seoul had no idea what was coming.